From the Nissan factory, I understand, in Sunderland. OK, Secretary of State, spill out the good news in detail. Good morning.
Hello, Nick. As you said, it's great news. Nissan have come in with £1 billion of new investment. They are partnering with a company called Envision, which makes batteries for electric vehicles in factories which we call gigafactories. They're these huge factories. This is the first gigafactory in the UK. It's going to provide 1,600 new jobs, well-paid jobs here in the northeast, and it's a great news story for Britain, as you said.
Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. Is Nissan a good candidate for state aid now, or have you helped them enough already?
I think Nissan's investment in here in Sunderland is a really, really good news story. I've been conversing with Nissan executives, also with Envision, who are making the battery, the gigafactory that you described. And this is a really positive story for the UK. We're delighted they're going to be creating 1,600 new jobs between them. These are very well-paid jobs. And I think it's an excellent development for here in the northeast and also for the UK.
Will we give them more money if they need it via state aid?
We are in conversation with them, as with other companies, and they feel that this is exactly the right place to invest in. We're very, very keen to develop that relationship, and it's a very good one for the UK and also for people here in the northeast.
So if they did come to the government and say, look, we need a bit more money in order to develop this further for the future, then they would be pushing at an open door?
I wouldn't say that they're pushing at an open door. We always look to get a good investment in terms of taxpayers' money. But they have a very good relationship with us. They've been here since 1986, and they want to commit to this plant for decades to come.
OK, why electric cars over synthetic fuel?
I think electric cars have proven their green credentials. They're popular, people are buying them in increasing numbers, and it's really the way of the future. And that's why Nissan are investing so heavily here in the northeast. And that's why that many countries, competitive, advanced economies, are seeking to attract this kind of investment to build gigafactories so that they can build electric vehicles. These are the transport of the future.
You're not dismissing synthetic fuel, though, are you?
Dismissing any decarbonised source of fuel. In fact, the synthetic aviation fuel is something that we're very keen to promote here in the UK.
Okay.
And we're looking at all sorts of technologies to drive very low carbon transport.
While I have the benefit of you on the line, we have talked before about locking in the so-called terminus date. Can you tell us now definitively that we will hit those targets by the necessary date?
I have done that before, and we had to delay the time, to be honest, be very frank. But I think 19th of July is something which the Prime Minister has been committed to. I was very pleased to see the new Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, also mention that date. And I am fully committed to reopening fully on that date, the 19th of July.
What will you particularly be watching? What indicators, what measures, what figures are you watching for?
The usual figures. We look at hospitalisation rates because obviously the NHS has to take the strain of that. And we're also looking at infection rates to see how quickly the virus is spreading. But as you know, the two vaccinations that we've had, the double doses, people who've had double doses are very much protected against the virus. And the information that we're seeing is very encouraging.
OK.
Come the 19th of July, are you going to ditch your mask?
I'm going to see what the guidance says. I mean, clearly, many people find the mask sometimes difficult to wear, but it is the guidance. I think we should follow the guidance to keep ourselves safe and, more importantly, to keep others safe as well, more vulnerable people.
Lastly, you have quite rightly explained how hard you and your colleagues are working to protect the borders. But my understanding is that as we progress through the Euros, around 2,500 delegates, sponsors, officials and others from whatever countries are still in the semis are allowed to get in. If you're so keen on protecting the borders, why are you permitting that, Secretary of State?
Again, it's a balanced question. I mean, what do we do? Do we scrap the tournament, or do we allow it to take place? We've allowed it to take place, and UEFA have made a case for people coming in, and as long as we have our own protection. So the main focus that we've always had, Nick, as you know, has been on vaccinations and doses to protect our people, and as long as we keep doing that, I think we'll have a measure of protection that we can live with.
You're wholly comfortable that possibly, and I'm sure you, like I, are pulling for England to win the damn thing, not just get to the semis, but possibly 10,000 people will come from different countries in the space of a few days, and all the checks that you and your colleagues, you're completely relaxed about that, and it's necessary, Mr. Kwarteng.
I'm not completely relaxed. There's always none of these decisions are easy. But I think that as long as we drive up the vaccination numbers, and as long as we observe our social distancing rules, I think we do have a measure of protection. I think there is a balance there.
And lastly, why can't an English or even British delegation go to Rome this Saturday?
I have no idea what the Roman sports arrangements are. I think it's something for the Italian government. Obviously, I would if I was Foreign Secretary or the sports minister, I'd be very, very concerned, and I'd want to talk to the Italian officials about allowing British delegates to come into Italy.
Great.
OK, and a final thought before I let you go. 400 Scottish fans at Wembley, when they came down for the game against England, have now tested positive. What impact is that going to have on the scheme that the government is presently running, and specifically the Euro 2020 final at Wembley? As far as the government is concerned, that will still go ahead despite the fact that there's this massive outbreak.
Absolutely, but the key to the outbreak, the key to dealing with the coronavirus is the vaccination. So I'd urge anyone who hasn't been vaccinated to get their first dose, anyone over 18, and people should be encouraged to get the second dose. That's what's giving us the protection that we need to fight this terrible virus.
OK, we've only got 5 minutes, so we'll canter through another couple of points if we may. This NHS app, we were told it was perfect to confirm double vaccinations for people who wanted to go on overseas holidays. I'm sure you saw what happened with people who were trying to go to Malta yesterday. They were told that the app is just not good enough, and they had to leave the airport and go home. What on earth is going on? What are we going to do about that?
Well, we're trying to engage, as you know, with countries across the EU. We feel that the double vaccination does provide really, really first-class support and protection against the variants. That all the evidence suggests that. And we need to speak to EU governments and other countries to make that case. I don't know what happened. Well, I do know what happened in Malta, but I don't know what the process was for the Maltese government to reach that decision. But it's something that we clearly have to engage with other governments across the EU and across the world to make sure that double.
Sorry to interrupt you. I know we're on a speaker, which makes it slightly difficult, and we're also pushed for time. But people who are going on holiday today, they should still be confident that if they've got their 2 vaccinations on their NHS app, that should be good enough to fly to their chosen holiday destination.
Obviously, it should be, but I can't guarantee what other governments are going to do, like the Maltese government. But if I were a traveller, I'd be very confident that I'd be able to go to my destination without any hindrance.
When can parents be confident that their children can be vaccinated against COVID-19? Will it be now, or will we have to wait until September?
Well, the JCVI have made very clear that they haven't actually given the clearance for children to be vaccinated. We've successfully vaccinated something like 45 million first doses for over 18s, but we're still waiting for confirmation that we can vaccinate children. And until that happens, we're not going to vaccinate children.
I spoke with one of your colleagues yesterday and reflected the anger that many of my listeners feel about the measure that's being brought in that business people, if they come from larger companies, can avoid some part of quarantine if they're coming in to do a deal in the UK. This, as I said to your colleague, at the same time as people can't attend funerals, can't sing at weddings, and in some instances are losing employment because they're at home looking after their children. How can you justify that, Secretary of State?
I think these are always very difficult questions. I mean, we talked about Nissan, and I was very keen that there would be a few exceptions, but I always argued that the exceptions had to be very, very limited. And in the case when people are coming in with £1 billion of investment and having 500 new jobs, 1,000 jobs.
So yours is the party for the rich, isn't it?
It isn't the party. It's a party of investment.
Mr. Kwarteng, it's the party. If you've got a $1 billion deal on the table, we'll find you a hurdle through exemption. If you want to go to Granny's funeral, there's nothing we can do. That's the Conservative government, isn't it, Mr. Kwarteng?
No. So the difficulty with that, Nick, is that all around the world, people are competing for investment. I was reading stories 2 weeks ago about President Macron inviting huge numbers of people to Paris to invest in the French economy. And you're not telling me as business secretary that I should sit idly by while President Macron attracts huge amounts of investment and creates jobs in France. It's a competitive system, global system that we have, and Britain has to compete to attract investment.
Tell a constituent in Spelthorne why he or she can't attend a funeral today.
I would say that they can if they have in a socially distanced
restricted
way.
Numbers, though.
They are restricted.
Or why they're at home looking after their child because they're still in these ridiculous bubbles. But a businessman or a businesswoman can come in and will find a way, will hurdle them over quarantine. It's unacceptable. It's the ugly face of the Conservative Party at this time, Mr. Kwarteng.
It isn't the ugly face of the Conservative Party. What it is trying to attract. I mean, you don't seem to take any account of jobs or any account of wealth creation or any account of the fact.
Respectfully, I don't think you're taking any account of people who are in mourning, people who want to go to their daughters' or sons' weddings, people who want to do a job and they can't, Secretary of State, because they're having to stay home because their children have been forced to self-isolate. And they're only paid when they turn up for work. You want to talk work? I'll talk work about that, Mr. Kwarteng.
Nick, I accept it's a really, really difficult set of choices we have to make. But as a business secretary, I have to think about thousands of people who need employment, and the prosperity of this country depends on inward investment, as it always has done.
Mr. Johnson says it's a Westminster bubble story or issue. Is he right?
I think what Matt Hancock did was wrong. I think he paid the price for acting the way he did. But Matt was someone who worked extremely hard over the course of the pandemic, and I don't want to detract from the effort that he put in, and he was a colleague that I admired.
Indeed. Respectfully, my question focuses more on the poor individual who died of leukemia, which, in the Prime Minister's view, this is a Westminster bubble story. For the second time, Mr. Kwarteng, is he right?
I've said what I've said about Matt. I've said what I've said about his resignation.
Yes, but Mr. Johnson's view that this is a Westminster bubble story.
I think it was a story which a lot of people in the Westminster bubble, journalists, politicians, were fascinated by. Lots of people in the country were fascinated by what happened to Matt. And there's been endless debate about it.